Hey guys, welcome to the Design Thinking lecture. Let's take a break from the vocab a bit and talk about how to think. Yep, empty your mind. Please take some notes on this presentation in your sketchbook and make sure it's clearly labeled under Design Thinking. You're going to answer a discussion question on this topic in D2L, so please prepare thyself. Your notes don't have to be extensive or anything. This lecture will take about 45 minutes to an hour, so feel free to pause and come back later to it if needed. But I do want some clearly labeled notes in your sketchbook, and this goes for all of our presentations. If you're taking this class online, there's no specific organization that is required for your sketchbook because you're going to turn in your portfolio digitally. So that means you can organize the digital images on your computer when you're ready to submit them. But if you're in person, if you're in this room right now, make sure that whatever way you decide to organize your sketchbook, just make sure that it is consistent. So I'll give you a couple of examples of some student work in the past, and you're welcome. They're on this shelf right here. You're welcome to come and look at them if you want to. But the first thing is that most students will take notes in chronological order. So that means like today, they will take their design thinking notes, and then on Thursday, they'll take their elements of texture notes and then just follow the rule that way. I've also seen another popular method of making notebook sections. So in their sketchbook, maybe the first third is reserved for like writing down notes, and then the middle third is for sketchbook assignments. And some students prefer to do their 4 projects at the very end, and it gives them lots of space and it makes it also lay flat over time. So for those of you who are in person, we will go over the sketchbook requirements at the end, and I will show you how to put pages together so that I don't look in them, because I understand that for a lot of you, especially for me, the sketchbook is a diary. So there's some personal notes in there. I also write, appointment information if I happen to use my sketchbook as like a sticky note graveyard, just stuff like that. So we'll talk about that later. But I wanted to talk to you guys about design thinking because we can learn these vocabulary words and all the basics, but if you don't know how to apply them, or if you don't know how to apply them or why you're doing the things, why you're learning, then you may not retain these things. You may not find them important. So I do want to go over a couple things for you. Now, this is going to be a little bit abstract, but please bear with me. Of course, ask me questions if you have any. Okay, let's get started. I first want to say that it's quite easy for artists and designers to get bogged down with the elements and principles like we've talked about. These guidelines have proven quite useful throughout history, and this is how historians are able to deduce meaning from different works of art because they see patterns. However, today, our ideas are quite complex. Our levels of thinking are complex. We consider more things. Technology and communication is stronger and more broad. Accessibility is something that is in the forefront of our minds, especially when we think about design intention and trying to make things accessible. Our ideas are quite multifaceted, I would say. And so, design has emerged as a new, more analytical type of creative thinking that highlights the conceptual outcomes. Conceptual outcomes and meaning are just as, and sometimes even more important than the visuals themselves, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We're not quite finished studying the elements and principles of design yet, and of course, this is going to be a lifelong study for you if you continue to go into a creative field. Um, they do make a strong composition on their own, as we talked about, but it's never too early to start considering how to think, how to be intentional. We are going to work backwards in this lecture. So first, I would like to introduce you to the design process, and we'll go through the steps on what it takes to solve a problem. Then we will talk about idea generation, where they come from, etc. And then lastly, we'll talk about how to evaluate whether an idea is good or worthy of pursuing. And I realize that that might be a little backwards, out of order. First, you might have to get the idea, then evaluate if it's good or not, and then go through the design process. But just bear with me. There is a little bit of a method to this. So let us begin. Sorry, let me find my notes here. All right. So the design process has 4 steps. The first one is a question. What do we want? This is where you are either presented with a problem or you are trying to solve a problem yourself. Oh, and let me just pause and say this. I'm going to use the word problem or idea kind of interchangeably. And what this means is the problem is basically a prompt. If you have a design problem that you would like to solve, that's your project prompt. If you're an artist, though, you'll probably come up with this on your own. It may not be a problem that you want to solve, but it might be an idea or a situation that you want to address, a concept that you might want to address. So just bear with me. The best way that I can help you to, or that I can say that might help you remember this is whatever word I use, just plug in your own word. So if you're an artist, use the word idea instead of problem. Apply this to your life and your practice. I want you to be successful. This is for you to get information and learning from. Make sense? Yeah? Okay. I'll let you know. You can stop me too. Okay. So step number 1 in the design process is to identify the problem. You will have to know who your client is. They will also sometimes define the problem for you, as in if you're a graphic designer, they could say, "Hey, I think we need to make our logo more modern." And then you do a little bit of research. They hire you and you do a little bit of research on the company and the way that their users access their website and things. And you might decide, well, maybe your logo could be redesigned and updated, and you could use an entire update as far as branding is concerned. But really, I think if you would narrow down your niche or your audience, if you would be more specific about who your audience is, then your company might be more successful. So that's a whole nother story, isn't it? How to deal with clients. But anyhow, this first step is to really go specific with yourself and with your client and say, what is the problem? What design should we do? What should we do to fix this design? Got it? All right. Number 2 is to evaluate what existing designs are similar to the design we want. So to use the same example, if you're helping a company rebrand or redesign, then you could see what kind of, we'll just say like a bank or something. You can look at the other logos of banks, both large scale and small. You can see what kind of logos they've had in the past, and even the company that you're working for, what kind of logos do they have in the past? You're just going to see, look for existing examples, both good and bad. Then, step number 3, what are the differences between the existing designs and our new one, the design that we want? So it's good to get a scale of all different levels, as in big banks and little banks, small businesses and large corporations. It's very good to get a scale so that you can look around and see what kind of competition who are you competing with. If you're a big bank corporation, you're probably not going to have the um, same more personable logo that a small bank may have. Or if you're a small craft business, we'll say, you might have a hand-drawn signature as your logo, whereas if you're someone like Erin Condren or Franklin Covey, who makes planners or used to make planners, they have a more corporate type logo, a more formal type of logo. So you see what I mean? There are different solutions for different levels of companies, different levels of design. So steps 2 and 3 will be used interchangeably most of the time. Got it? Okay. You also will have to, in step 3, consider, because you're pretty far along in your design process if you're in step number 3. So you will also have to consider at this point whether the design is worthy of pursuing. So I have a specific example because I worked with a civil engineer a couple of years ago. Have you guys been into parking lots that have scales? Like I think there's one in Discovery Green that shows how many parking spaces are available. Yeah. I mean they're relatively new, I guess. But let's just pretend that you're an engineer or you're working for an engineer. and you are commissioned to design a parking lot that works on a scale system. So as soon as a car goes onto the scale, then the light above that spot turns green or turns red, saying this spot is full. So as other drivers are driving along, all they have to really do is look for a green light that identifies an open spot. Well, as an architect and as any if there are any landscape or civil engineers in here, you'll know that not every idea works in each context. So, for example, um, a location that's riddled with earthquakes may not be, or mudslides or something, any changes in the earth may not be the best place to put these parking lot scale sensor thingies, because if any changes in the ground or the structure happen, then these systems could potentially break. And ripping up the entire system to first evaluate and then repair any breakages is quite costly. So, as a designer, you will have to work with your team to understand, is this a sustainable decision for us? Is this something that will work here? And then if not, maybe the underground system doesn't work as far as the scales go, but maybe there is a way that we can detect how many spots are open, either maybe by hiring an attendant or putting a gate at the entrance of each parking lot, which I think that's how Discovery Greens is. So it counts how many people go in and come out, and then it posts how many spots are available on that little board. Yeah. So step number 3 is where you also compare your work to the successes and failures about what's available. Okay, I'm sorry, that was a tangent. Yes. Yeah, Discovery Green downtown, it's right across the street from the George R. Brown Convention Center. And there is a parking garage there, and it's underground, so it's not very like tall or anything. But it's very close to Minute Maid Park. So if you're an Astros fan like me, you can park there, and it's a very short walk to the ballpark. Yes. It's pretty expensive, but it's a nice walk. We always stop by the Marriott and go to that Craig Biggio's restaurant there. They have really good French fries. Just saying. Yeah. Okay, ready for number 4? Okay, number 4. Last step in the design process, as far as this part is concerned. How can we combine the best ideas from past inventions with our new ideas? And I know this sounds a lot like number 3, but number 4 is a positive outlook instead of a more critical one. You're going to find the things that you like about the existing designs that you've researched. And then this is an opportunity also for you to bring in any personal experiences or ideas that you have that may not be related to what exists. So if you're, let's say, well, actually, I'm just going to give you guys an example. Hmm. All right, let's consider an example of this 4-step process. This is a situation that is real. It's real. It happened. Does anyone know, raise your hand if you know the designers Charles and Ray Eames. Eames, Ames. Couple of you, huh? Do you know what they designed? Yeah, nice. Cheers. Okay, so this is the Charles and Ray Eames were the two most innovative and influential post-war era designers. I'm just gonna make that claim right now. Charles Eames, the husband counterpart, was trained as an architect and an engineer, and this you can detect his attention to detail and big picture three-dimensional thinking because of that type of training. His wife, Ray, was a painter. She contributed a love of visual structure and so an appreciation for architecture and things, and also a sense of adventure and playfulness and an understanding of marketing. So she related more to the people, and Charles, her husband, related more to the object itself. So they made a really great team as designers. Together, they designed a lot. They, of course, had works of architecture, installation pieces, sculptures, other art forms, toys, furniture, and I even think they dabbled in film a little. I'm not quite 100% on that, but I will look it up, and if I find something, I'll send it to you guys. 1940. They competed in a design competition for chairs, and it was put on by the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. It's also called the MoMA, Museum of Modern Art, MoMA. The MoMA put on this competition, and what that meant was that they defined their first step in the design process for them. They already said, what do you want? Well, here's your answer, a chair design. And of course, there were more parameters, more rules, but we don't have time to get into that. So for the second part of the design process, the Ameses considered that second question. What else exists? Well, clearly, many chairs, a ton of similar products already existed. And at the time, the two most common chairs were the overstuffed chair. You probably have one of these or know someone that does. Maybe you've seen them in lobbies. Hotel lobbies are very popular places, libraries. They're still very popular because they're very fluffy and padded and they look welcoming and cozy and inviting. And they have a very sturdy framework that's hidden under all that padding. So it supports the sitter well. And the second most popular example of the chair at the time was the Adirondack chair made of flat wood panels. Does anyone have these? Yeah, not very comfortable though. Yeah, so maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, yeah, I've sat in these chairs, but there are nicer, better chairs out there. And you're absolutely. And those chairs were also considered by the Ameses. So this is partly going into question number 3, or design process step number 3. But here are some more chairs that were existing in production. These two chairs were designed by other architects, by like Marcel Breuer on the left and the Alvar Aalto chair on the right. Woo, look at that price on the Alvar Aalto chair. Yes, that is $4,000. Now, these are today's prices. I found that online. But yeah, they're designer chairs, so they were expensive. These architects had already begun exploring the chairs that defied gravity and utilized modern materials in an unexpected way. So they had already gone through the design process as far as making a chair. I'm not sure if these two were submissions to this competition, but the chair fascination had already begun because those were already in production. And the architects, of course, had a know-how of materials and manufacturing and how things were made and gravitational um, effects on chairs and people sitting in them. So they already had a background, at least a general one. But anyhow, to bring it back in to focus, by comparing existing chairs with what the Ameses already had in mind to design, Charles and Ray Ames could identify the qualities that they wanted to retain, that they wanted to discard, or that they wanted to change. Well, let's go back one here. One of the yeah, let's go back. So what are some of the things that could be changed from the overstuffed chair? Why is it not that efficient? Hmm. Yeah, it's big. Yeah, it's bulky. It's really awkward. Yeah, yeah, it's pretty, but it's comfortable. It's inviting. Yeah, you can imagine probably curling up in one of these, maybe in your grandma's house, or maybe you have one at home. Great book reading chairs. Yeah, they're very cozy. What about the Adirondack chair? Yeah, yeah, you have one, right? Where do you keep yours? Yeah. These are, yes, these are outdoor chairs. They're in the backyard or on the beach or on your porch or something. They're outside. So they're yes, exactly. So these Adirondack chairs are a little bit too large to maintain a sense of modernity in a living room. It's not sleek and modern materials, and it just looks kind of we'll call it vernacular. Vernacular. It just means local. That's it. So if you have like a vernacular architecture, it would be like Adobe houses in Santa Fe, New Mexico, for example. They're using local stuff. The Adirondack chair may not be vernacular, but it looks a bit, how do you say it? Unfinished as far as high design was concerned. We'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, it would be, I mean, it would be very hard to create a sense of openness and airiness and lightness with Adirondack chairs in your living room, especially in the cookie cutter box houses that were really popular in the 1940s. Yeah. Okay. So, but remember now, remember which audience the Ames is and this entire competition were really immediately dealing with. The art world. It was put on by a really large, successful, popular, well-known art museum. So our audience is not necessarily the general public, although they would probably say that it was. But we all know MoMA patrons and appreciators of art, especially at the time, were usually educated in fine arts. They knew how to talk the talk. They knew how to use big words like vernacular and just juxtaposition those things. So the audience maybe was something that also Charles and Ray Ames thought that they could redesign. We'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, it's kind of great. And so speaking of the larger audience or the more elite audience, what would you say would be a negative or something wrong with these two chairs? This one's easy. Yeah, it's too expensive. Exactly. We just talked about it. So, as a tangent, again, another tangent, I mean, it's a common goal for modern designers, contemporary ones, especially today, to make fine designs more accessible, more affordable, so that everyone can enjoy and use them. And that's a great thing a great power that you have as a designer and an artist. You really do have the ability to consider materials and manufacturing processes that are not only sustainable but better for the general public to give people access to well-designed things. And that, my friends, is how Target exists in our lives. But that's also another story that we don't have to get into. Yes. Okay, so the Ameses wanted to create a chair that had it all: comfortable yet elegant, modern looking yet inexpensive. The point is, the question really is, how did they do that? At this point, after looking at all these existing objects, the Ameses were now at step number 4, considering past inventions, even those unrelated to chairs or furniture. Remember, this is your personal contribution, and they used all this information to create their design. So a little bit of background, more background on them. During World War II, this couple had designed and produced something really innovative: molded plywood splints. And those splints were used by the US Navy. These two discovered that they could steam plywood sheets into complex and smooth curves. So if you apply hot, steamy water or a hot steam, yeah, steam, okay, steam. If you apply steam to really thin sheets of plywood, you can bend it and mold it into any shape, any contour that you need, really. It's a process, but it's quite sustainable, especially at the time. And these resulting splints could support broken legs and or any broken body parts as support. Yeah, it could support their injuries. I'm sorry. It could support their injuries instead of utilizing steel or aluminum, because during World War II, those metals were precious and they needed those for the war effort. So not only did this little change hugely impact the needs of the World War II efforts, but it also led them to be inspired to use it again in this new chair project. So for their competition entry for their chair, finally we're at it. They combined the problem, step 1, their admiration for modern chairs, which is step 2 and 3, and their knowledge of anatomy and architecture, which is step 4, to create their first prize winning chair. Drum roll, please, everybody. And behold, this is called the side chair, SIDE, side chair model DCM. And as you can see, it is made of molded ash plywood, steel rod, and rubber shock mounts on the bottom. Oh no, it wasn't worth the wait. No? Why? Well, what do you think about it? Why do you think it's boring? Oh, it's too simple. Oh, yeah. No, no, no. This is good. You're allowed to respond this way. It's okay. You don't have to like it. As long as you can explain why you don't like it in more words than, well, I just don't like it or it's ugly. If you can explain why you don't like it, then you're golden. But guys, I was actually expecting this response. This chair isn't that striking, and here's why. So to get to that why, let's look at an example of this desk. This is from the 1930s. So remember, their competition was in the 40s. This is something that was used 10 years prior and before that in school. Did anyone have a desk like this with a swivel chair that was attached like that? No? Okay. I mean, yeah, we have those ones that are attached, but the chair doesn't swivel, right? Yeah. Maybe if you didn't have them in school, maybe you've seen them. Okay, so let's start. Tell me about the materials you can see in this picture. Missy? Yeah, wood and that delicious rusty steel, the metal base. I don't know if it's steel, but it's definitely rusty metal. Yeah, that's probably the culprit of so many stubbed toes. Man, those look hefty. Yeah, and the swivel chair, as you can imagine, yeah, it was probably super distracting and didn't help in keeping those 9-year-olds still and under. Yeah, exactly. Probably was not good for a 9-year-old. Swiveling, twisting back and forth. Yeah, we need them to sit still, don't we? So from an ergonomic standpoint, fashion designers, interior designers, industrial designers, I'm talking to you right now. From an ergonomics standpoint, this is not a very accommodating desk. It doesn't take into consideration the different body sizes, body types, perhaps, ages, um, different needs of different people. Okay, think about this. Imagine you are 6 feet, 6 foot one, and you're gonna sit in this desk when you're in 10th grade. Yeah, no way. There's no way. Oh, sorry, guys. Yeah, there's no way. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure you had problems with it. You're so tall. I'm sure you had problems with the connected one that you had in high school. Did you ever put your feet on the basket that was under the person in front of you? Did you ever break it? Uh-huh. Sure. Sure you didn't. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, so you can see how this is thoughtful desk construction, I guess, and production, in probably to keep desks in line inside the classroom a little bit better than loose chairs would be. But it's not the most comfortable or accommodating desk. And so after that competition, the reason why this chair won first place and was reproduced so many times afterward is because the implications of this chair with its potential context of the classroom, schools, was pretty successful, considering what we just saw was being used. Yes, exactly. This one is uniform, it's modern, it's also lightweight and ergonomically suitable for maybe not everybody, of course, but definitely a wider range of sitters. So if you're a teacher, is anyone planning on being a teacher after the, yeah, so you've been in the classroom, right? Yes. Okay, yeah. So you've had to stack the chairs after. Yes. Well, I mean, we've all had those experiences of stacking chairs. But you can imagine stacking these at the end of the day. Like they're pretty lightweight. They probably stacked nicely. Easier to maneuver around. Kids can probably drag it around the floor. So much room for activities. Right. You're exactly right. So overall, a more successful design than what was previously given to us, especially in America's school systems. So it wasn't that striking because we use it now, believe it or not. Well, we don't use this one exactly. You can. There are many places like restaurants, like Chipotle has a very similar one, although their chairs are so sharp and pointy. But anyhow, um, their first idea of the side chair led them to multiple variations. And so they figured using plastic to redesign or like make a 2.0 design for this chair was more cost effective and it was very easy and quick to make. So they they made the picture in the middle that you see, these are the like the 2.0 designs of the side chair. And any ladies recognize the one on the right? Gosh, do you remember getting your hair caught in those little rivets on the back? Oh, that's like a core memory. Yes. Oh, there's hairs. People, if you have long hair, any person who has long hair will probably remember getting your hair snagged on those rivets. Oh gosh, that hurts so bad. Yes. Okay, I'm sorry, tangent again. So to bring it all on backtrack, yep. Okay, yeah. Let's settle down, you guys. Okay, so let's bring it all back. Charles and Ray Ames then, because of this, opened a new door with their manufacturing, right? So the side chair led to all of these variations that you see on this slide, and it had invented new manufacturing processes. So they were not only successful in creating one, but many, many. Yep, even that monster on the right. Ugh. Okay, so overall, the reason that they won is because they addressed a need. They saw a need that needed to be fixed, and that need was maybe one of the reasons was the audience was too elite, so we need to make something cheaper, faster to manufacture. Also, they saw a need for variation of seating in schools, more accommodating seating and more open seating in schools. And they researched the existing designs, which is step number two. They made comparisons with others, as you saw. That was step number three. And then, of course, step number four, they combined their best characteristics of the existing chair design. So materials was one of them, ergonomics was the other, wood. So they took the wood from the Adirondack chair, which is highly sought after and cheap and renewable. They took the metal from the Marcel Breuer chair, and they also took the comfortable feel of both the Alto chair and the slanting of the Breuer chair and the ergonomics, the fluffiness, I guess, the shape, the smoother shape of the overstuffed chair. Yes, and then for step four, they put their personal and external knowledge into their design. So they used their knowledge of steaming wood and architecture and other things, of course, to create this new one. And this, my friends, is how you win the Game of Thrones. Does that first slide make a little bit more sense now? Yeah, I'm sorry I distracted you. All right, you guys, welcome back from break. Yep. Yeah, go ahead and take more notes on this. We're going to talk about idea generation. Okay. All right. So maybe now you're sitting here thinking, maybe you thought to yourself on your break, well, it really must be nice to have a prompt for every problem that needs to be solved by design. It must be nice to have the answers given to you for the problems to be identified. That's one of the hardest parts, right? I mean, where's the competition to design the end for world hunger? That's every day. We won't get into that. That's too much. It's a different class. Well, are there any artists in the room? Yeah, I know you're an artist. Any others? Anyone going to art school after this? Yeah? Ooh, I highly recommend it. I might be a little biased though. Well, if you do make art or if you plan on making art, if you do it in the future, you know this, you'll generally come up with the ideas on your own, especially when you get to the more advanced levels. Yes, you'll come up with these ideas. You can enter exhibitions, you can enter your artwork into competitions that have themes, but generally, as a practice, your own personal experience and your empathies usually drive your inspiration. So you identify the problems in the world. And yes, I mean it's good because maybe you don't necessarily need to solve them, maybe you just want to address them. Yeah, it's nice. As an artist, you don't necessarily have the same pressures or the intensity of the pressures that and the deadlines, I guess, that other designers as a profession would face. Yeah, you'll have clients, but they're not saying like, I need this logo design in 2 weeks. Yeah, you basically can work on your own time. You can flesh it out as you need to. Because artists are free, man. They're free. Yeah, yeah, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. But it's good. It's good. It's good. Okay, sorry. Regardless of the motivation behind your work, regardless of what you're doing, artists, creative people, and even the more analytical people, we're always scanning our surroundings in a relentless search for images and ideas, especially today. We're so bombarded with images anyway, we don't have to go and search for them because they're just stuck in front of us. Yes, billboards, social media, of course, commercials, um, clothing design, everything, bumper stickers, you name it. There's design everywhere and it is in our face. There's advertising everywhere. Yes. And if you're already a practicing artist and designer, not only are you bombarded with the same thing as like just a normal consumer, but you go out and look for it too. So you have a lot of imagery coming into your brain. And you know that because you see this so much and you pay attention, you see the world differently. You see the nuances. Yes. And then so because of that, I firmly believe that if you're a creative person and you take in imagery on purpose alongside your other daily life, I believe that the mundane things in life really inspire you. So even something as simple and boring as a crack in a sidewalk or the patterns of clouds or even the patterns of like the jets, I don't want to call it a jet stream, but the fog or the exhaust, is it exhaust? That's really sad. The lines in the sky that the airplanes can make, those can be inspiring. Nature, of course, so we'll get into that. Anything, ideas come from everywhere. So let's talk about a couple. And if you ever find yourself at a loss for an idea, take a fresh look around. You can find these simple everywhere. Consider the ideas that you can generate from everyday objects, even like car keys, scissors, a cardboard box, coffee mugs, doorknobs, etc. And here's an example by yet another architect, Frank Gehry. That's spelled Gehry, Frank Gehry. And it is yet another chair. I promise that designers do more than just chairs. Sorry, I guess I should have picked another example, but it's a good one nonetheless. And you can tell that Frank Gehry designed this chair on the left, which was inspired by the wood strip bushel basket that farmers use. Yeah, I always see these at Hobby Lobby and Michael's. They're like home decor now, but they actually are quite useful on a farm or anywhere. Yeah, you could bring your pumpkins inside, man. Yeah. But yeah, you can see the resemblance, right? You can see where Frank Gehry used probably a similar method of steaming that wood. Or I'm sure if you've ever made a barrel before, I don't know a lot of people who've made barrels, but barrel making is a similar process to this type of basket. The intersections of wood are apparent in the chair too. So, I mean, you can be inspired by everyday stuff. Another strategy to use, strategy number two, is to look at nature. Natural forms like seashells, nests, leaves, like the veins inside leaves, flowers, even insect wings, all the things. They're also inspiring, as you can imagine, like cloud formations, like I just talked about. Here, this artist used glass, the transparent and fluid qualities of glass. And the nature comes in the form that was created. And it's a porcupine. Isn't it cute? So here's an example of fine art. Oh, by the way, the artist is Vera Liskova. It's spelled Liskova. And as a fine artist or as an artist, Vera Liskova is not necessarily looking to solve a problem with this design. Yeah, exactly. So it's just an expression of something, a connection that the artist made, perhaps a silly juxtaposition or a pairing of a strange media with an animal, so glass and nature, animals. Maybe it's an allusion to the sharpness of glass and also the sharpness of a porcupine, something like that. Something man-made and something natural equally as threatening. But here I think it's kind of cute. I think this little porcupine's cute. It doesn't look so threatening here. Maybe because its quills are down. I don't know. But there's that one quill right in front that's sticking out. Better watch out. And another very important idea generation method that you could potentially use is to visit a museum. You can go to history museums, science museums, just any type of educational exhibits, art museums, even, of course, sports museums, film museum, anything really. There are so many at your disposal, of course. And the why is because you look at cultural history there. You look at cultural history and environmental history and things, and physical objects that you find there, like artifacts. Those are quite inspiring and instructive. They're instructional. And of course, you can find them at museums. There's tons everywhere. So for many of us, looking at non-Western work is especially valuable because um, American culture, we'll just say, is relatively new compared to ancient ones. And I mean American culture as in America before the Native Americans. Yes, yeah. So the established American culture, New World England, we'll say. I mean, we're barely like 200 years old. We're little. We're babies compared to something like, well, the Native American culture, for example, or the Roman Empire, very old Chinese dynasty culture and history, very, very old ancient cultures, and Atlantis, if you believe in that, you know. America is relatively new as far as the world is concerned, but anyway, these cultures are so instructive, and we really do need to keep looking at them. Especially I would say you have a responsibility as a creative person and as a designer to know your history, because of course, as we saw, the Ameses used, even if it was recent history, the Ameses used um, history and cultural events to define and to justify really their design of their chair. Okay, so sorry, let me get into it. Does anyone know anything about this sculpture? Or not this one, but the culture from which it. Yes, exactly. I'm sorry, I gave it away. This is inspired by Native American culture. It's pretty apparent. This is a form of Sisutl. I am so sorry if I butchered that name, you guys. I'm so sorry. I'm trying my best. Sisutl is a mythological sea serpent who can turn its enemies into stone just by looking at it. So similar in concept to the Medusa from classicism. Sisutl also comes to the aid of clan leaders and can transform itself into weapons, canoes, tools for victory. So it changes its identity. So understanding the history behind these visuals can help you formulate symbolisms or symbols like this in your own efforts to use toward your own efforts. So you can certainly create a work of art like this for yourself or to present inspired by other cultures, or maybe even looking into your own ancestry could help. It could really make a viewer engage with your work. And so, hmm yeah, I'll talk to you about it after class. Okay, is that all right? We're gonna take a break in 10 minutes. 7 actually. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Just remind me because I will forget. You guys know me. All right. So those three ideas: looking to nature, looking to culture and history, and then looking at everyday objects to transform. Those are just three examples. Those are not an end all be all. There's many ways that ideas come, you know. Yes. Yeah. So I want to say something. Regardless of where your idea comes from, though, it has to engage somebody. It's not a good idea if it doesn't really engage anyone. Someone told me this a couple years ago. It was actually it was right when we were starting to open back up after COVID shut down, and it really stuck with me. I know it's only been a couple of years, but it's still with me. She said, "You won't be able to gauge your creativity if you don't leave the house." So I was working as an artist and I was trying to get and a graphic designer and I was trying to get commissions and talk to clients and meet new clients, but of course I was conditioned to think that being socially gathered was bad and things. So from COVID era, and everyone was scared still, so it was tough. And I was trying to do it and to develop and grow as an artist, but I wasn't leaving the house, and therefore I wasn't engaging with society and people potential buyers, potential clients, potential new friends. It wasn't networking. So she said something so profound. You cannot know if you are creative if you don't see people. If you don't show somebody your work, they're not going to be able to tell you whether it's innovative or not. You're not going to know. So basically, this means that you and your creativity are not measured without context. You don't create in a vacuum. The world does not revolve around you. Yes, your experiences immediately drive your ideas, your interpretations of life. It creates more experiences and therefore it defines and underlies all creative decisions or any decisions that you make. Yes. And yes, exactly. And you need other ideas then to proceed and follow your own. And that's why it's important to know history. You need to know the ideas that were before you. Yes. And then, of course, once you do know those ideas, then you can go through that design process and discover what was good or what needs to be held on to, what traditions are good that are valuable and need to stay, or what needs to change. So, I mean, this sounds very political right now, doesn't it? Like we're riding a very political or religious even line that we could apply this conversation to, that this design process conversation to. So that's something interesting to say. I know there are a couple of you in here that are not art majors or design majors, or you're not in a creative field, but this type of thinking, which is thinking about thinking, really, it can help you in your daily life. It can help you reevaluate your beliefs, your values, and help you understand where people are coming from and why you are the way that you are. So you can get real deep with this. Yeah, don't do it right now. But as I mentioned before, if there's something that you're like, I see you furiously writing in your sketchbook over here. I love it. If there's something you need to get out, put it in your sketchbook, man. If it's okay if it's on this notes page, if there's something you want to cover up, I will teach you how to do that. So yeah, yeah, just oh no, that's okay. But let's talk during break. So I'll talk to you first, and then I'll talk to you. Yeah, we're almost done, guys. I promise. Yes. All right. Okay, okay. So whether your problem is given to you, as we saw in a couple examples, or if you invent it, a good one, a good problem or a good idea is usually one that includes the following things. Number one, a good idea or a good problem or a good question is significant or important. So identifying the major goals within a problem or an idea or a project can help you determine the worth of pursuing a solution. So if you think something is worthy of solving, you will probably be passionate about it. It will be relevant to your life at least, if not society. And then you can evaluate whether or not this is something that you can, pursue as far as solving it. Number two, is your problem socially responsible? Is your idea or is your project or is your proposal socially responsible? And so this is what I learned when I started writing in college. Is your paper going to be not socially responsible, but I guess worth it? Is it going to be relevant socially? Because when you're writing, someone's going to read it. Someone in your society is going to read it, so it does have to at least address something. Number two, let me just elaborate a bit more on number two. Consider consider if it would be unwise to pursue a project that, for example, squanders natural resources. So that's not very socially responsible, especially nowadays, right? So think of the materials you'll need. This is where you consider more details of your project, but you might have to dive deeper into uh, yeah, you might have to dive deeper into your solution or your proposal to get to this step to evaluate your idea. Number three, very important. These are not in any particular hierarchy, but it's just a list. So number one's not the most important. Just keep that in mind. Number three, your problem must be comprehensible. Well, duh, you can't really solve a problem that you don't really understand. So you have to do the research, you have to immerse yourself, you have to ask the questions to the appropriate people if anything is unclear to you. So in my opinion, as an architect, kind of, I believe truly that it is specifically a responsibility of an architect to know their clients, yes, but also to know the society, the people in the societies in which they're building. So if you're building something in the third ward, you need to go talk to the people in the third ward. What do they need? What do they want? What do they know about architecture? What do they know about the history of their area? Like, you need to be responsible and get their opinion at least, because nothing is worse for, I guess, an architect and a builder, or nothing is so unexpected as to build something and then the culture in which it is built hates it and they neglect it. They don't take care of it. They don't take pride in it. They don't agree with it. Gosh, it's embarrassing. I've seen a couple of my friends go through something like that. It's not good. So you need to ask the right questions. So if you're working with a client, for example, really try and understand their perspective even before you try to assert your authority as a designer. Really, truly use your sales knowledge and your sales tactics to step into their shoes. Try. Even if it's hard for you, just try. Little unsolicited advice there. Just speaking from experience, guys. I don't want you to be hurt. Protect the babies. Yes. Okay, number 4 is openness to experimentation. So it kind of follows number 3 a little well, but let me explain this to you through an example. Let's say that you have 2 projects that you're going to present to your students. So you're in my position, and you're going to present a project to your design class, to your photography class. So project number 1 that you are evaluating, you're trying to decide if this is a good prompt or not. Number 1 says organize at least 20 photos in a way that they will convey an idea or an emotion. Okay, organize 20 photos so that they create or evoke an emotion or an idea. So if you give this to photography students, this is quite broad. They're going to go out and take pictures of, well, first they have to either, they could work maybe 2 ways. They have to decide on the idea and the emotion that they want to embody with their project, and then they have to go take the pictures, or they take pictures of something that interests them and try to synergize them into something that makes logical, makes an emotion or an idea. They're both kind of difficult, but they're pretty broad, right? You can imagine yourself completing a project with that prompt. Yes, it's pretty vague though. Pretty vague. Because emotions are really subjective, aren't they? I mean, something objective. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, so something that might make you sad, or let's just say this, maybe going to a bakery makes you sad because your grandfather owned one and he just passed away. So taking pictures of muffins and pastries and beautiful cookies and cupcakes might be very sad to you. But to a child, oh heck no, that's not sad. That's fun. There's cookies. Yeah. So see what I'm saying? It leaves a little bit too much room for interpretation as far as a design standard is concerned. So the second prompt that you could potentially give your students is very complex, very specific. It says, organize at least 20 photos. Again, so we have that 20 photo metric. Organize 20 photos by Civil War photographer. Oh, what's his name? Oh, it's going to come to me. Civil War photographer Matt Brady. That's his name. Sorry, let me start over, guys. Oh, I'm sorry. Organized 20 photos by American Civil War photographer Matt Brady to tell the story of the life of Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, that's really hard. So, okay, in number 1, the requirements are clearly stated, but the solution remains quite open, which is somewhat enjoyable. But it is lacking as far as a design standard is concerned, because you're dealing with subjective and objective values that may not make a universal solution. Number 2, both the solution and the problem are clearly stated. So the solution is to tell the story of Abraham Lincoln's life with photographs by Matt Brady. Yeah, that's the problem part. So what I'm trying to say here is you need to give yourself room to create if you can help it. If there are too many restrictions on a problem or in an idea, or if there are too many rules, you can get quite frustrated. Yes, yes, exactly. You can get really frustrated if you don't have anywhere to go. And maybe you're shaking your head, some of you thinking, no, 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 wait, that's wrong, because restraint breeds creativity. And you're right, that is true. Restraint does breed creativity. That's why when you look out and you see homeless people with all of their carts full of stuff, and you see their little villa that they've created, they use the things that they find, the limits that they find, the things that they can scrounge in a very creative way. So you're right, limits do creativity. However, if you can help it, give yourself room to create. That's what I mean by your idea is good if it is open to experimentation. So for example, in number two, maybe you don't have to use photographs by Matt Brady. Maybe you can use photographs from all Civil War photographers, or maybe you can use paintings or something. So you have to sometimes broaden your window to find a good solution. And I'll say this also, to a designer and an artist, there's really no bad idea. There's no bad problem, um, because it's really more of the solutions that could be deemed good or bad, or just incomplete. We won't even say good, bad. We'll just say incomplete or complete, or understandable or not understandable. Does that make sense, you guys? Yes. Okay. So another thing I'll say this too is if you ever feel like you're working through a project and you're in a straitjacket, like if you just cannot get around yourself, if you can't find a way out, just rethink the problem. Maybe it's not you. Maybe it's not you that needs to you don't have to be so hard on yourself. Go back if you're having a trouble finding a solution, go back to the initial question and see if there are any holes or if there's any way that you can give yourself a little bit of freedom. Go explore new ideas. Go explore external sources or something. Okay, got it? Does anyone have questions so far? Hmm. Okay, great. All right, so number 5 on this page, and I have to be careful with this one because I have a very specific opinion about it, but it's driven by experience. Uh-huh. Okay, so number 5 says authentic. A good problem that you should pursue solving one that is authentic, or something that's also uniquely interesting. Oh, but gosh, I cannot stand these words, authentic and interesting. They're so overused today. Yes, and it's thanks to marketers and advertisers. Thanks a lot, you guys. So when you hear them in daily conversation, and I'm not talking about marketing here, but when you hear them in daily conversation, they're typically used as like a placeholder for unknown words, or maybe even like passive aggressively. They're used in that sense. So I hear this all the time on social media. I'm just gonna be my authentic self, or even in like sermons at church, just make sure that you're authentic. You're true to yourself. What does that even mean though? It doesn't mean anything. It's so vague and so arbitrary. So what you're basically saying is, like a synonym statement could be, just be your real self. Well, I certainly hope you're your real self and not your artificial self. Yeah, exactly. So I guess we can take it to marketing to make it a bit more um, hmm, specific. Marketers use the word authentic a lot to just um, relate to their customers, to seem more relatable. It's a cheat. They're cheating. Okay, so I'm trying to think of an example of one. I mean, you can see it a lot on packaging for grocery stores, like organic foods. Ooh, organic's riding that dangerous line too, but it can say made with real, authentic ingredients. Well, yeah, you just said it's made with real ingredients, so what's the difference between real ingredients and authentic ingredients? Why do you have to have both adjectives? They mean basically the same thing. I sure hope they're real ingredients and not fake ones for certain things. Yeah, anyway, so companies use this just to make things more appealing to people instead of like the general public, instead of a group. They're just trying to win you, you know? So what they're basically saying is, um, They are saying our company is so authentic, and what that means is you should choose us because we exist. Our company is authentic. Yeah, you're a real company, we know. Okay, I'm sorry. The word interesting is also similar. I see this a lot from my art appreciation students. They'll say, this painting is interesting. So I mean, it doesn't take a stand anywhere. It's just a placeholder word or a word that they put in a place instead of saying what they really feel about it. Yeah, it's just a momentum driver. I know a lot of people during conversation, and I am so guilty of this too, I'll admit that. Well, I'll admit this. I'll say, when I'm arguing with someone, I'll say, well, that's an interesting perspective, but, and then of course I'll continue my opinions, but like I'm clearly not interested in what they said because I was just waiting for my turn to talk, and that's wrong. I realize that that's wrong. Have you ever heard that? Is anyone else guilty of it? Please don't let it just be me. Oh, I'm so lonely. Okay, yeah, okay, yeah. Phew, thank you. I know I'm not terrible. Okay, so to bring this back to a design perspective, if you deal with clients, they will also use this word, especially the word interesting, when they don't have a word to use. A lot of clients are actually intimidated by designers and even artists because they realize, yeah, it's not always. You're right. You're right. But it's not always. But if you prove yourself to be smart and academic and professional, if you prove yourself to be those qualities and that you can stand at their level, then they get intimidated and they'll say like, "Oh, well, that's really interesting. That design's interesting." And I've seen so many emails that have that word in it, and I want to respond with good interesting or bad interesting. Like, please, what do you mean? Yes. You know what I'm saying? I digress. I digress. But if you ever have questions about what types of words to use, come talk to me. It'll make you a better writer. All right. So let's bring it home. The last tenet of a good problem, the last characteristic of a good problem worthy of solving is one that involves you and all your experiences, all your tastes, your history, your knowledge, your skills, everything that makes up you. And regardless of the source of the problem or wherever the idea comes from, whether it's given to you or whether you generate it yourself, your personal investment in the solution is the gas that powers that idea bus. That is what it means to be authentic or have an authentic idea or an authentic solution, really, because a good solution is something that is built on the things that you truly believe in and understand. And you can't believe in or understand something necessarily unless you've lived it, unless you've experienced it. Does that make sense? Okay. You don't have to agree with me on the authentic and interesting. All right. We did it, you guys. I hope you learned something today, even if it was just a small thing. Go write about it in D2L. For my in-person folks, your D2L assignment is going to be posted in actually just a couple of minutes from now. And the instructions will be under the section that's called Design Process. Online students, your discussion is already posted for you. Go ahead and head to D2L in your design course, not the lab course, the design course. I think I've hidden it from you. So go ahead and check out that course again, log in, and click on the design process discussion and answer it there. It's short, guys, don't worry. No groaning, it's fine. It's not an essay, it's really short. But you are required, remember, to use complete sentences when you do. Don't do bullet points. Complete sentences, good capitalization, good grammar, please. Yes. And also, guys, sit down. We're not done yet. We're almost done. 5 more minutes. Less than 5 minutes. Hang on. Okay, please consider these things, but don't panic. I know that the projects in these class will not be as complex as the examples we talked about today. This is an introductory class. We're not going to design something per se. And I mean, if you want to, you certainly can come to me and we can make a project. Yes. If there's something that's like really boiling in your brain, yeah, let's do it. Okay, I really do want you to, um, if I could bless you with something, just go out into the world and search for things that could be made better through design. Go around your house, get in your car, Consider your, okay, let's, on that note, consider your commute to work. Consider your schedule even. Could you design a better schedule? Could you design a better relationship? And not because you don't control the other person. You control you, right? This is you being your authentic, real self, remember? Yes, so go out into the world, look around you, observe things, observe the way that people use things and they interact with the objects in their world. Think about how you could make things better. Always view it with an air of positivity, though, never too much critique. Also, practice appreciating your surroundings, which is what I mean. Appreciate nature, appreciate history, even appreciate current events, even though I know it's hard. Yeah. Don't appreciate traffic though. Y'all go home. Don't appreciate traffic. Put your phones down. No more texting and driving. Yes. Yeah. So you through appreciation and through observation, you will become a more well-rounded thinker. You'll be able to use this design process in everyday life, not just in your creative stuff. You will be able to design a better life. And you'll also, because you don't design in a vacuum, remember, you have to leave the house. Yeah, leave the house. If you do this, yes, if you appreciate your world and if you consider design, you will meet an authentic and interesting person. All the authentic and interesting people out there. But I know. It's great. Okay. Have a good day, you guys. Those of you who wanted to meet